One of the many joys in my life is that many of my closest friends have toddlers. As the unofficial basketball coach and professional park chaser, I've had the holy privilege of spending hours watching little ones discover the world for the first time. And honestly, it's sacred. If you've ever witnessed a toddler lose their mind over a ceiling fan, or marvel at a squirrel, or experience the world-ending grief of being denied a third cup of juice, you've glimpsed this holiness that I'm talking about. Everything is new. Every emotion is real. Every moment holds wonder. And nothing is taken for granted. Every time I'm with one of my tiny friends, they've uncovered a new truth. That the moon follows you home. That peanut butter is magic. That cats are not, in fact, people, even though the cats might disagree. And behind their wide-eyed amazement, there's a deeper process unfolding. One we adults often forget is happening: the construction of a master story. A master story is the quiet narrative that answers the big questions we don't always ask out loud. What does it mean to be a person? What's right and wrong? What's worth living for? Who can we trust? What do we believe? Who do we believe? Every tantrum, every why, every bedtime story whispered in the dark, every hug after a hard day is a building block in that child's spiritual and emotional architecture. And while toddlers show us this process on the surface, the truth is we never stop building stories. We just learn how to hide them better. Perhaps they are more embedded within us, because stories are how we make sense of the world. They're not just entertainment or metaphor. They are the quiet scaffolding of reality. We live inside them. They teach us what success looks like, what kind of love is possible, what we owe each other, what safety looks and feels like, how to grieve, how to hope, what's forgivable, and what isn't. And most of the time, we're not even aware we're living by them. The most powerful stories are the ones we don't have to name. They just are, until they aren't. These stories are incredibly helpful. As writer Adam Curtis teaches, that both individuals and societies tell themselves stories to simplify and make sense of the messy chaos of reality. We inherit these master stories from our families, our schools, our society, and of course, from our faith. Judaism at its core is a tradition of stories, not just in the Torah, but around the Torah. We inherit narratives about what it means to be a good Jew, about what it means to belong to a people with trauma in our DNA and resilience in our soul, about what it means to support Israel, to pray, to doubt, to stay. And not just individually. Our communities have stories too. Our institutions, our city, our country. DC has its own mythology. The idea that if you work hard, serve your country, build your career, there will be a place for you. You'll matter. You'll make a difference. You'll be safe. But here's the thing. And if you've lost your job this year, or felt betrayed by your government, or questioned your life's trajectory, you already know what I'm about to say next. Sometimes the story crashes. Sometimes the story crashes. Rabbi B'nai Lappi teaches that every master story will eventually crash. Not maybe, not if you're unlucky, inevitably. Every story inevitably crashes. Because no story, no matter how good, can fully contain the complexities of real life. Sometimes it's a slow unraveling, a gnawing sense that the job you gave everything to isn't giving you anything back. That the version of Judaism that you were raised with doesn't make space for your whole self. That your dream of partnership or parenthood or success is more complicated than expected. And sometimes the crash is sudden or brutal. A layoff, Doge, a breakup, a diagnosis, a betrayal, a war, a death. Whatever it is, the crash is the moment the story stops working. The questions it used to answer no longer feel sufficient. The scaffolding comes down. And when that happens, Rabbi Lappy teaches we only have 3 choices. Choice number 1, deny that the crash happened or is happening. Pretend the crash didn't happen. Keep pretending the job, the relationship, the ideology still works. Smile through the burnout. Fake it in the name of loyalty. The cracks will keep growing, and eventually the denial won't hold. But for a while, it may feel comforting. It lets us push off and avoid the crash for as long as possible. But surprise, it doesn't hold. The second choice is to flee and completely reject the master story. Walk away. Start a shiny new life. Erase the old story entirely. Reinvent yourself. And that can feel exhilarating at first, but over time, we start to feel unmoored. We forget where we came from. We lose a part of ourselves. And surprise, that one doesn't work so well either. And then there's option 3, which invites us to face the crash, acknowledge what no longer works, mourn it, and then, with great courage and creativity, begin to build a new story, a new version of who we are, not from scratch, but from the remnants of what still holds truth. This third option, revision we'll call it, is the Jewish way. It is literally the reason why we are here. In the year 70 CE, the Second Temple in Jerusalem was destroyed, and with it, the entire structure of Jewish life crashed. At the time, there were no synagogues, no rabbis, no prayer services. Judaism as it existed was temple-based, sacrifice-centered, location-specific. There was no Judaism without the temple. And then, crash. Here, perhaps a physical crash, but also an intellectual, spiritual, and practical one as well. The priesthood scattered. The center was gone. And in the ruins, a small group of people who we now call, wait for it, rabbis, chose not to deny and not to flee, but to revise. They asked, what can we still carry forward? What does our tradition look like if it moves from land to text, from sacrifice to prayer, from priest to teacher, from one place to every place? What they built was radical, portable, reimagined. It would have been completely unrecognizable to their great-grandparents, but it worked because they honored the crash and then committed to the holy, heartbreaking, creative work of rebuilding. And because of this, we are living in the story that they revised. I don't need to tell you that we're living through another crashing moment. This year in DC, so many of you have lost your jobs or fear losing them. Maybe your identity was wrapped up in that job or in public service or in being part of the political process. Maybe your parents had the same job for 30 years and you thought you'd have that too. And the story you were told, that hard work, loyalty, and service will give you stability, may not have held up. As we're watching the National Guard take to our neighborhoods and streets, maybe the story you've always told yourself about safety, about who keeps us safe, what safety means, and what it feels like to be safe, isn't quite holding up either. And if that weren't enough, many of us have experienced crashes in our own Jewish identity this year too. As the war in Gaza and Israel continues, many Jews have found themselves caught in grief, in confusion, in community fractures. Maybe you felt like you've had to pick between your values and your people. Maybe your previously solid story of what Israel meant no longer feels solid at all. Maybe you're mourning relationships that didn't survive this past few years' conversations. Or maybe your crash was more personal, a breakup, an illness, a friendship that ended, a future that quietly slipped away. Whatever your crash has been, it matters, and you're not alone. These crashes are painful and heartbreaking. They elicit a type of loss that requires that we grieve. Grieve the crash, its implications, the story that no longer works. Grieve for our imagined future. We feel stuck. How do we move forward when the pain is so real? But maybe we feel guilty about grieving, or feel like we have to move on to keep stability in our homes or in our relationships. My favorite little hidden detail in the story of the temple destruction in 70 CE is what the rabbis and people did immediately upon witnessing the destruction. As they watched their entire framework and understanding of Judaism lie in ruins, what did the survivors do in the face of all of this destruction? We're taught that they tore their clothes. They cried, they screamed, they lamented. They mourned for the destruction, for those who lost lives, for future generations. They mourned out of fear for the future. They held onto everything that they could remember, from the most sacred stories to the most mundane details. The Talmud teaches us that even God cried. Our tradition teaches that before we can even imagine rebuilding, we must stop and grieve. We must feel pain from the crash, name it, and intentionally say goodbye to what wasn't working before moving on. 3 years ago, I had one of the biggest crashes in my life. I was 3 weeks from rabbinical ordination. I had left my job. I was planning a life with my partner at the time, and suddenly everything fell apart. The relationship ended. I had no job, no city, no grounding. It felt like the floor disappeared before my feet. I had given my entire heart to a story that no longer existed. And in that moment, in the midst of my grief, I came across a piece by Jordana Starkman called the Anew for Shitty Times. It's great. She begins with a simple sentence. The past 2 years have been, in a nutshell, very shit. She writes about how in the span of 2 years, she lost her mother, a dear friend who was diagnosed with cancer, and then her sister was also diagnosed with cancer. She wrote that she was also diagnosed with cancer. She wrote that there was no silver linings to this, but she constantly found herself surrounded by moments of grace, small jokes, big gestures of love, and mornings when she woke up and ready to face the day. In all that fear and uncertainty, she met those moments with one thing, the prayer, the Shehekianu, the prayer that translates to "Blessed are you, God, for allowing me to reach this moment in time." The prayer said upon doing or trying something for the first time. She wrote, "The first time I wrote my own Shehekianu was in 2016, when I was in grad school in Ireland. It was the year before the country legalized abortion, and after an ill-advised night with a boy from the internet, I needed Plan B. Standing in the bathroom at Third Space Cafe," she says, "I opened my mouth, and without thinking, my first custom Shehekianu came out. Blessed are you, eternal Spirit, who has brought me to this moment with 20 euro for the pharmacist and the ease of totally legal, totally safe, over-the-counter Plan B. I took the pills with a deep sense of gratitude for the decades of Irish feminists who made this moment possible. Then I high-fived myself, and I went to class." Since that moment, she has accessed those holy words time and time again, guiding her and holding her through pain, anguish, and loss. She wrote, "At my mother's Shiva, blessed are you, eternal Spirit, who brought me to this season, surrounded by a community of Jews who dress me and love me and feed me fancy pickle barrel party sandwiches. On the birthday of my friend, 8 months after her death, blessed are you, eternal Spirit, who brought our community together to celebrate our friend and indulge in her favorite activity, eating a lot of dairy without taking any lactate pills. When I received my cancer diagnosis, blessed are you, eternal Spirit, who gave me a Grey's Anatomy level hot radiologist and brought me to this moment when cancer screening for BRCA1 carriers has never been better. These words didn't make the pain go away, but they made the pain holy. And that's what we as Jews and people who love Jews and people who feel connected to Judaism do. We cry, we laugh, we bless, and then we build again. That's the invitation of Rosh Hashanah. We often think of Rosh Hashanah as the Jewish New Year, and it is, but in our tradition, it's also the birthday of the world, the anniversary of creation itself. The Hasidic masters teach that on this day, we encounter God the Creator, the God who makes something from nothing, the God who looked into chaos and said, "Let there be light." This year, I invite you to ask yourself, what story in your life crashed? Have you grieved it, or have you tried to outrun it? What are you ready to release? Is there a story that you're clinging to that feels too scary to release and let crash? What's in your way? And what new stories are you brave enough to begin? You don't have to know all the answers. You just have to ask the questions. You don't have to fix everything by Yom Kippur either. That overachiever, here we are. Don't have to get an A in Judaism. You just have to take one step. Write one new Shehekianu, mourn one old story. Imagine one new possibility. And know this, you're not doing it alone. You are a part of a people who have survived because of our willingness to revise, to break open, to rebuild. So this Rosh Hashanah, may you grieve what was honestly, may you bless what is unexpectedly beautiful, and may you begin, even trembling, to write what comes next. Shana Tova Umetuka, a good, sweet, honest, and brave new year.